Thank you guys so much for joining me once again. I'm with the wonderful Barbara Devlin. She is the the U.S. distributor for Anna Lotan PRO. She has been a longtime aesthetic educator. I met her when she was teaching at the Katherine Hines Institute, and she's an amazing educator. She used to be with PCA, so she brings a wealth of knowledge, years as an esthetician. But I'm very excited to have her because she is going to be helping a lot of us at the summit talk about rosacea and redness and how we address it and why we have so many clients that are dealing with it. So, Miss Barbara, go ahead and take it away. You've been doing a lot. You've been doing a lot. And I love your befores and afters, and even you on your socials with this brand. So talk to us a little bit about it and how you got involved with it and the results that you guys are getting, because it's amazing.
So the company's home office is based in Israel, and it was started by Anna Lotan herself, was the esthetician who started the company. And her passion really was chronic skin conditions. So how she really got her name out in the industry in the Middle East was a protocol called cold hydration. And she originally came from the Ukraine. And then during World War II, she was in Germany. She, immigrated into Israel after World War II. And she was trained in Europe as an esthetician. And, the Europeans, we use steam, at Katherine Hines, we used to use that heat mask, but there was always heat involved. And it didn't make sense to her once she immigrated into Israel. Now she's living in a desert. It's a hot environment. People have infection on their skin, and to use heat or steam. So she came up with a protocol called cold hydration. So it's more like a disincrustation type of a gel that you would put on the skin. That's what kind of got her name out in the industry. And she really realized, helping clients with chronic conditions was really like what she really wanted to help. And that can be hyperpigmentation, it could be acne. And now Leora is Anna Lotan's daughter. And I met her, I was at the New York show in 2015, and I was doing classes there. And she happened to come into my class. I didn't know who she was. She sat in the front row. She was asking a lot of questions, but she was very nice, very respectful. You know how it can be crazy at a show. You just never know what's going to happen, right? So they leave. She was with a gentleman. They left. And then 2 hours later for my next class, they came in again. And again, she's in the front row. But this time they stayed. And they asked me, they explained to me that they had come to the US to look to see what the industry was like in the United States, because they already had a presence in Europe, Eastern European countries, the Middle East, and Russia, but nothing in the US. So they sent me product to try. And my skin immediately, I would say like the barrier, the hydration of my skin felt improved. Now I've been working for another line, and that line is really known for peels, right? And as I was with them for about 15 years, and I really feel like as I aged in the industry and I learned more, my philosophy has changed as I've grown, as I've aged, right?
Right.
And that the barrier is something that we never really talked about in aesthetic school, like the microbiome or the barrier or any of that protection. We never really addressed it. And I was an educator for 20 years at an aesthetic school. So, I kind of know what we were, teaching to students. And my skin felt improved when I started using these products. Now, to back it up a little, I was working, for a peel line, and I had really stopped using those peels on my own skin on a regular basis. And I felt that when you work for a peel line, that's all you do. Clients come in every 4 weeks, peel, 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 peel. And we kind of were getting away from hydrating the skin and improving the barrier. It was all about just peeling, and the pHs are low and the percentages were high. And I had really stopped doing those type of treatments on my own skin. So when I met the owners of Anna Lotan, their philosophy was already ahead of mine, because they were already where the direction I was going in. So they invited me to go to Israel, and I went, and I ended up coming back, and I became their US distributor and their educator here. So, so Leora, who is Anna Lotan's daughter, the woman that was asking me all the questions, she has, Anna Lotan passed away a few years ago. She was 96. She had a nice long life. So she was an educator, an esthetician, an electrologist, and the chemist. So she was the formulator. So Leora has stepped into that role. And what's nice about Leora is her formal education. She was an architect. And so it really makes sense when if you have a chronic condition on someone's skin, you're building, you're taking this recipe and this formulation and this raw material. And so it kind of fell right in line with how she was educated anyways. So she's now the formulator. And
Wow.
she ended up really seeing a lot of estheticians reaching out to her with rosacea. So she took this undertaking on to come up with this line to help treat clients with this. Either it could just be skin redness, irritation, doesn't have to necessarily be like a subtype 1 or a subtype 2 rosacea, but that was her vision when she developed this new line for us. So like, you mentioned it, like right out of the gate, we're getting amazing before and afters. And I think where estheticians are afraid to sometimes take on this client, we all have the type of clients, we all have the things we like to do the best, but if you can help. On the Rosacea Society website, I think it says 41% of rosacea patients have like canceled a social event, and 90% say that it has definitely affected their self-esteem.
Oh,
So
wow.
if we can get them in the room and get away from our back bars a lot of times are filled with AHAs and enzymes. So in the products, there's 2 exfoliants in this series, and they're really using, one of them is using herbal oils. And that's how you're breaking down like the crust. Sometimes if someone has that subtype 2 rosacea, there's a buildup and it looks dry on the surface, but really underneath it isn't. So we can break down with these oils the buildup on the skin until the skin feels, smooth. And then we go in with a product with like frankincense and myrrh. So all we're really trying to do is hygienic conditions, help control that microflora on the skin, and really make it so that clients can manage it at home. So they can come to us for a treatment with this, with these products. We can feel safe that we're not going to make the condition worse for them, but they go home with maybe 2 to 3 products to start. Maybe they can add 1 or 2 because less is best, with this client. And we're really getting amazing before and after photos with the line. So I'm really excited about it.
Wow. So let's go to our questions. Why are estheticians really struggling with simply understanding rosacea? Is it
Well, go ahead.
really lack of education, or is it lack because there is so many different triggers? There's so many different things that are put into the rosacea category, because there's a
Yeah,
lot of us that want to know, but
right.
we're also kind of afraid.
So I feel like, you said the word triggers. So there's many, many potential causes and triggers, right? And there's no cure, like that, there's no cure as to date. So like Demodex mites have kind of made a comeback. Like years ago, we talked about them, and then we kind of stopped talking about them, but they're now coming back as that's a potential, could be a potential cause. And now there's these Th17 cells, and these are newer cells that they've just discovered, and they're finding that they have a lot to do with like inflammation and autoimmune diseases in the body. So,
Wow.
so if the doctors or an esthetician say, if the doctors can't isolate it yet to know exactly what the cause is, we as estheticians, we don't diagnose, right? So we don't know either. And I think for an esthetician, you need to like breathe and say, listen, my job isn't to cure it. My job is to help this client manage it. So that way, if you take the pressure off, because if the doctors in the medical field haven't figured out the exact cause or the exact cure yet, that takes pressure off for us. And we can say, listen, I can safely get you onto my aesthetic bed. And I can use products that I know are not going to cause more inflammation that you already have on your skin. I can help you feel better about yourself. That's a win-win for the client and for us. And I think in aesthetic schools, we don't really talk a lot about rosacea. So rosacea is on the rise. We do know it's on the rise. It doesn't discriminate. It's across every, ethnic background, so it is something that's getting worse, especially stress, everything people just went through for COVID. So I feel like if we can give the esthetician tools to feel more confident, I think it's just a confidence thing. If you don't work on it enough, you just don't have the confidence. So with safe, products that we know we can recommend to the client, you should be able to confidently take a client in and know that if they follow the home care routine, part of the issue with rosacea, I feel, is sometimes the client, they get control of it and then they go back to their whatever products they were using, or back to something maybe at CVS, or they have that extra glass of wine.
Yeah.
I'll always say to a rosacea client, we don't want to say to the rosacea client, you can never have fun again, but they need to start to look at what their triggers are, because your trigger and my trigger could be different, so they can control their triggers a little bit. We can send them off with, products that we know are safe for them to use, and then it's a win-win.
So when you have all these estheticians that are coming to you that already have these rosacea clients, they've had them for some time, and they have been over exfoliating them, or they have been, because let's be honest, that is what a lot of estheticians
That's
are
what we
taught,
do.
that
Right.
you got to exfoliate it to get to the problem, and then
Right.
you're going to moisturize it. So now you are telling them that they're not actually helping it, they're making it worse. How is that then received? Is it more of they're defensive, or is it more just, I didn't know?
I didn't know. It's really more of I didn't know. So, like I said, there's two exfoliants in the line. One is really just all herbal oils that help to break down that crust on the surface. But the other one, which is really an amazing, it's an amber color. The presentation of the product alone is beautiful, but it exfoliates with hyaluronic acid. So it's like an innovative way to exfoliate the skin. So you take out this, it's a beautiful amber color, like a gel. And as you massage it in, again, it turns into like an oil. So in almost all Anna Lotan professional products, the delivery system is where the secret is, right? It's what she puts those active ingredients into to deliver deeper into the layers of the epidermis. So you take this, it's called exfoliate and restore. When you start to massage it in, when it inverts into the oil, the hyaluronic gets delivered deeper into the layers. Now with hyaluronic, the cells drink it in. And now if the cells were this distance apart, now they're like pressing against each other, and then they just gently exfoliate on their own. So there's no abrasives, there's no AHAs, there's no salicylic, and the other thing with bringing up salicylic, a lot of times rosacea is misdiagnosed as acne. So that's a whole nother can of worms, because you would use salicylic on an acne client, but you're not necessarily want to use it on, especially when they're inflamed. We want their skin to, get to a healthy state. And then even with, say, anti-aging or, age management products, those come down the road for a rosacea client. You get their skin in a healthy state. They try to manage their triggers. Now they're on maintenance, and then little by little we can add other products. If one by one at a time. But we don't want to overwhelm their skin right in the beginning. So like I said, the before and afters. Like we have an esthetician right here in Boston. She has a studio on Newbury Street, high-end neighborhood. She has a great reputation here in the Boston area, and her before and after photos, and she's used many different lines, and she like 100% for rosacea clients and truly sensitive skin. She's sending me amazing before and afters. So I can, I'll share those, and I'll take, before and afters to the show with us, so the estheticians can see them. But it's really, and we have some pitches that just home care alone, without even doing the treatment in the room, they're seeing an improvement on their skin.
So you
Yeah.
really are kind of working in the reverse of what we've been taught here in the US when it comes to rosacea, because we
Yeah.
are taught to churn and burn. You got to churn and burn to get to the
Yeah.
fresh skin. And that is not what Anna Lotan is doing. And those
No, the
results
opposite.
are
Right.
not with that either. How is
Right.
that, would you say, for you, with all the years that you've had in our industry, and now you're seeing the results without those tools? How are you really looking at all of it in general?
Right. So, I feel like we need to shift. We have to first shift the esthetician's mindset, who then can shift the mindset of her client. But so I took a class last week because I still love education. So
Absolutely.
okay, like I'm not an educator who doesn't like educate. I love education. And
Right.
I'm the person, I sit in the front row, I have my notes, like I'm a nerd when I take a class, right? And this was a newer line coming out. And so, separate from Anna Lotan, nothing to do with Anna Lotan, but it was in my area. So I said, I'll go take the class. And they're definitely following a lot of the Anna Lotan's philosophy with formulations. We're using, like, we follow the European Union, okay?
Yes.
So our pHs can't go below 3.0,
Yes.
but in the United States, we're not supposed to anyways. Everyone's jumping out, everyone's out. Okay, so now in the pHs, not the pH, the percentage, like if in AHA, the European Union, like we use 16%, they can't go over 18. So we're right where, so this new line coming out is right there. After the class, I received a treatment. After the class, the next day, one of the other attendees, who was a former student of mine, at the school, texted me, what did you think about these peels? And I said, I love them because they're already in the philosophy of what I do with Anna Lotan. And she goes, oh no, I like my skin peeling off in layers. So the estheticians are still part of the, I don't want to say problem. I don't want to offend anybody, but we need to change our mindset. Causing, if inflammation is the root of all evil, like all our diseases is from inflammation, why do we put all this inflammation on the largest organ that we have? It doesn't make sense.
It
So I
doesn't make
think
sense.
no. So we need to retrain. We just need to retrain. So, in aesthetic schools, hopefully that will be the new, way that we teach. And then because doctors and nurses, again, I don't mean to offend anybody, but doctors and nurses have jumped into our industry.
Absolutely.
And because they have the mindset, a lot of the client bases, oh, I can get us like stronger is better. So they want to go in that direction. And then they end up with all this inflammation. And those aren't the treatments you can get every month. I have a friend that just started working at a new med spa that opened in the Boston area. She was a model for a peel the other day. She goes to me, Barbara, I'll never do it again. It was painful. She was shedding for 7 days. I said, how many times I've been telling you this for a long time now, you don't listen. So,
Well, I think that's the thing. I've been, on Instagram I actually have my Milady's book here, and I've been explaining the buffered versus unbuffered, right? And then the percentages of peels that actually the rest is buffering agents. So,
yeah.
Like, do you understand the percentage that you're working with that's unbuffered? Like that
Mhm.
jar, 30% of that jar is only the acid. Like,
Right. Yeah.
we don't understand that for a lot of skins, it is intolerable. And now we have trained people to be excited to see their skin falling off, to be excited to
Right.
see this type of result. And you know, the incidences that we're having with all of these, especially skin of color and darker Fitzpatrick's,
Yep.
these
Yep.
damages that are so prevalent that we're doing on purpose, right? We're
Right.
dermaplaning,
Absolutely.
we're chemical peel, and then we're microneedling, and none of that makes sense to injure the skin that well,
Right.
right?
Right.
So
Right.
with your now your knowledge, you have all the tools that you have available, and you're starting to see these amazing changes in clients that suffer with rosacea and the percentages of people who are suffering with rosacea now. How are you really getting across to estheticians maybe the first two things that they should know to say this is a rosacea client, then we can't go down that path of normal?
So I would say the first thing is get your AHAs out of the room when this client comes into the room. AHAs is not the answer for this client, right? So that's one. Just and really start ask them questions. The consultation is so important. Like, does anyone in your family ever been diagnosed? Have you been diagnosed, or are you just writing down that you have rosacea because your uncle had it or your mother had it?
Mm,
And then the opposite can happen is from our experience that the client has rosacea, but they don't write that they have rosacea because they don't want the stigma. Because
wow.
there's the four subtypes. You don't have to have all four. You can have just the one, which is, the excessive redness and maybe the dilated capillaries. So I think it's really just having empathy in the room for the client, understanding that this is something that definitely affects their quality of life. You take a breather, they take a breather, sit down. The National Rosacea Society website has PDFs that you can download as the esthetician to give to your client, and it's like a diary, and it helps them keep track of like their food, or like when they had a trigger, what did they do the day or the week prior. So it
Wow.
can help, and they're free to download right from that society. I think it's the nationalrosaceasociety.org, website.
Wow.
So, it's really sitting with the client, doing the consultation, and just asking them like just questions, how long have you had it? What type of flare-ups? Because not everyone, like I just said, you can have subtype 1 and never get subtype 2. So, and if you can manage it, then it's even better.
So you're going to break all that down with us, because that's the thing. We don't know what to look for because we don't want to do skin consultations. We want to take them
Right,
right from
right.
the door and throw them in the
Right, yeah,
bed.
yeah, no, no, especially with this client, you have to, the consultation is so important, so important. Because you
Wow.
know what, by the time they come to us, they've probably been to a dermatologist who only probably gave them like Metrogel or something, like, the derms aren't getting into the daily, okay, put this medication on your skin, and if your client's on medication, we're not going to tell them to come off the medication. They're going to listen to their doctor. So they would put the medication on first and then follow up with whatever we recommend for the daily care. But if you can get them to, say, listen, can you give me a month of your time? Can you give me a month to try these products? And then maybe they'll be able to come off the medication, right? But by
Wow.
the time they come to us, they've been to the derm, they've been to CVS and everywhere, buying everything over the counter, and usually those products are too harsh for their skin. So they're a little gun shy. So for them to come into our aesthetic room after this like PTSD they have from every place else they've already gone, when they come into our room, we want them to know that we feel for them. We have empathy. We're interested in them. I don't just want to get you on the bed and do a quick treatment. So maybe for this client, you add an extra 15 or 20 minutes to the appointment time and really go through the consultation. And like I said, that Rosacea Society is a wealth of information. Sun is the number one trigger for rosacea. Number one is sun. And,
Wow.
like with acne, milk or dairy can be a trigger. But for rosacea, that's like way down on the list. So they're really, even though the presentation on the skin can sometimes look similar, they're really completely different, conditions. So
Wow. I'm excited for you coming out and sharing with all of us, because I do think that it's something that, one, we're not taught well. We're not taught what we see. right? And
Mhm.
then we don't know what to do, so we go
Right,
straight to where we feel comfortable. And
right.
that's not helping. We're making it worse.
Right, and it really is getting underneath, especially on that subtype 2 rosacea, because they might have like a crust and it does look dry on the surface, but once we can break that down with the oils and we get underneath, it isn't dry, and that's where those microflora love to live. I always use the example of say you're 55 years old and your 35-year-old son is just got divorced and he moved back home and he's like, I'm only going to stay for, I just need a couple of months to get my act together. But now he's home and maybe you make a couple of meals a couple of nights a week. Maybe you end up, oh, I'm doing my laundry. I'll throw in his laundry. He's getting really comfortable. And that's what happens with these microflora. When they are living underneath that crust, they're now really comfortable. That's their new habitat, right? So back to the sun. Now, we don't want anything tragic to happen to him, but we want him to move on out. So when we take this oil-based exfoliant, we very gently remove the crust on the surface, we get down underneath, and then we put a product, like I said, with frankincense and myrrh are some of the main ingredients in there to help to like purify the skin. It makes it an uncomfortable home for the microflora. So their reproduction slows down, and then we don't want to use products that are so harsh that we kill the microflora, but we damage the rest of the skin.
Right.
That's the balancing act. So it's like we don't want the child to die, but we want him to move on out. That's the mindset of these products when we're treating rosacea. We're not trying to cause too much inflammation on the skin and do too much damage that we make it worse. We just want everything to, there's receptors on the skin. And when these microflora are in abundance, the receptors are like, it's kind of like they have anxiety. They're always alert. So when we can kind of, reduce the microflora on the skin, receptors can even breathe, and that helps with the inflammation on the skin. So it's really, it's a simple collection of products. There's only 9 SKUs in the line, and one of them is a really beautiful SPF. So there's like 8 treatments in the line. So it's an easy line to follow within the Anna Lotan umbrella, because we have products for pigment and, aging, we have many different collections, but this one specifically, this is our newest one. And like I said, we've had really amazing results right from the beginning. So I'm really, happy to come and share it. And
Absolutely.
yeah, so it'll be good.
We'll be excited. So, those of you who are coming to the Esthetician Summit, you will be able to hear Barbara speak and ask her all those questions. And she's going to have those wonderful befores and afters that she has. I've seen them, they're absolutely amazing. And here's the thing, this is a market that many estheticians don't want to go into, but it's needed. It is needed. And it's to the point where, there's getting results without even having to do aggressive work. I'm a big fan of less is more. As I get older, I can't burn and churn my skin like I used to. You can't. But once we get that mindset, I think this will be really different. Thank you so much, Barbara, for your time today. We can't wait to
Thank you,
see you.
Stephanie. All
We're
right,
going to
I'll
be
see you
really
soon.
excited. Absolutely.
Okay,
You have a great
sounds
time.
great.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.